Arabic part?
Oh, I mean, various.
Who?
Right now, Saddam Lewis.
Well, I don't. I know that Ahmed Al-Labi used to be at Stanford, but he was before your time. Ibrahim Musa used to be at Stanford. He was before your time. Who's at Stanford now? Joel Benin, of course.
He's my advisor in history. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then
Joel is good.
yeah, and then the Arabic program is run by Khaled Abou.
Oh, he's I didn't know he was at Stanford. Oh, he's a good Arabic teacher.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No one else have any pressing questions they want to ask?
Or non-pressing.
Or non-pressing questions. Any questions you want to ask?
Is this a graded course?
It's
pass or
fail.
fail.
So it's not.
So you can't fail anyone, of course.
I
After
mean-
coming on this trip, I mean, like that. Is he
They
still
showed
fail?
extraordinary commitment in the previous classes.
And so, I mean, did you actually drive?
Yeah, we drove there.
How many hours is this?
It's like 7 total.
I mean, we stopped. It took 6
Yeah,
hours of driving. We stopped in the middle
Yeah.
a couple of times.
For 7 hours, I mean,
Where
all
are
the
you,
power to.
Where
Huh?
are you all staying?
We're staying at an alumni's house in Malibu.
Actually, yeah, we're going there tonight, right?
Yeah.
We're probably going to be going there.
Malibu.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
And who else are you
Don't-
meeting with during the week?
We're meeting with a lot of different organizations. So one of the ones we're meeting with tomorrow is the Islamic Center of Southern California. So we're meeting with the youth group.
CARE
And we're also meeting with CARE, ICNA.
I saw.
Yeah.
It was all Society for International.
This is really, I mean, did you guys organize all of this?
Where are you both from?
This
I'm
is
from Santa
amazing.
Clara.
I
So
you're actually, you put your professors at shame. To shame, you know, because that's, I would like to take this course.
You could go back, you wouldn't have to read the 30,000 books.
If only I had the time machine, I think I would. Yeah, I mean, definitely, this is not encourage any. Maybe more fun and less reading would have been. In my case, maybe a little bit healthy, but I search for the truth. I mean, you know, this whole thing about you know, even at this stage in my life, I recently got invitation to go to Ethiopia, an invitation to go to Azerbaijan, several times to go to Turkey, to go to Afghanistan, and lived all my life as a Muslim. I've probably read more books about Islamic theology, law, and history than the vast majority of Muslims in the world, and probably non-Muslims. And I have a sheer sense of anxiety as I get ready to visit any Muslim society that I'm not familiar with, because I know that the Islamicity that I will encounter in Azerbaijan will be very different than anything I'm accustomed to in Egypt. One of my experiences that I always tell this story because it just stuck with me really powerfully. Where I grew up, if you're being honored as an Islamic scholar, we have sort of the way you're honored is there's a dinner, no alcohol of course in the dinner, and a couple people will come up, give speeches, and then they call your name and they give you a plaque, and then you give a little speech, and then the event might start with some Quranic recitation, and at the end there might be a nice dua, supplication, and so that. But when I went, I was honored in Malaysia and Indonesia, and I will never forget just how remarkably different. Part of the program of honoring my work was a performance by Sufi groups, and particularly in Indonesia, it was a group led by a female singer who had this heavenly, angelic voice, and did the whole. It's a whole performance of singing and dancing, and I just imagined if I took this celebration in Indonesia and went to Saudi Arabia, and it didn't raise an eyebrow. I mean, this was thoroughly Islamic, and actually, I talked to in Indonesia. I was so they had provided me with a translation of the poetry recited by the Sufi group, and the poetry was mostly Hafiz and some Rumi and then some local poetry, but it's so gorgeous. And when I talked to the performers afterwards, the one in Indonesia, the master was this woman. I mean, she was the head of that Sufi group, and her students or her believe that her voice is so beautiful because she's touched by God and touched by the divine, and that's part of the one in Malaysia. There was I discovered that that all the performers were a family. It was all related, brothers, uncles, cousins, sisters, brother. I mean, but it is very much a part of Islamicity. In fact, I wondered, as I sat there remembering the various Sufi tariqas in Egypt that continue to be led by women saints, female saints, which when we were in Egypt last time, I still saw several of. I mean, they still exist in abundance, and they still hold their meetings, but you just have to notice them. And it struck me that the dinners that we have today in the Middle East honoring someone have far more to do with what we borrowed from Western or our colonizing cultures than anything inherent or native. I mean, the whole idea of dinners, catered, tables, napkins, what do you call it, fancy silverware, suits, ties, presentation at the beginning, plaques, all of this is nowhere to be found within Islamic culture. I mean, not within Islamic, because it is part of Islamic culture once it was adopted, but nowhere to be found historically. It's not historically rooted, and that's a curveball for you. I mean, but yet, if you talk to someone from Azhar today, and they'll insist that that their proceeding is far more Islamic than the one in Indonesia or Malaysia. On what basis? I mean, what I witnessed in Indonesia and Malaysia goes back centuries. What takes place in the events in Egypt and in Jordan and in the Kuwait, the places I attended, they go back a few decades, basically to British colonialism.
On a related note, have you ever found that as a Muslim living in America and studied in America, that if you've traveled to different countries, do they also have a misconception of you as a Muslim in America, or who studied in America, or is it not?
Yes, but you see, here, I mean, there's where some very interesting racial issues start coming in, because I mean, I of course, I'm a little bit different because of the fact that I didn't grow up in the United States, and so I'm not really an American Muslim in a pristine, real sense of the word. I'm an immigrant, and my qualifications, my bona fides, were formed in Egypt before I came here. So that, but it is definitely the case that quite often the assumption or the attitude of Muslims in let's say Arabic speaking countries towards an American Muslim is one in which they will think that, well, the power dynamics are such that the Muslim from the Arabic speaking country will think that they have everything to teach the American Muslim, but nothing to learn from the American Muslim. So they see them as not somehow a superficial Islamicity or a corrupted form of Islamicity. Now, this, however, is very different when it comes to a Muslim who is white, typically a convert. In the colonial legacy, I think, a sense of inferiority vis-a-vis the race that colonized you makes, what I've observed is that people fall backwards and forwards celebrating the white convert. I mean, the way that in fact, not only that, but immediately placing them in a position of authoritativeness and knowledge that is not warranted and not earned. So the fact that they've converted to Islam and they've been a Muslim a couple of years, suddenly everyone raves about how amazing their lectures are. And when you actually listen to the lectures, they're okay, but nothing. It's like, I love the Prophet and fear God and have taqwa and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, fine. But it's like, they're so profound, they're so brilliant, they're so this. No, but you take a Muslim who is Indo-Pak or Middle Eastern, born and raised in the United States, and they get treated very differently. And this, even I'm so disappointed. I spent quite a bit of time in Azhar and Dar al-Iftar last summer, and I'm sort of disappointed in the way that even the shuyukh tended to cater to this stereotype. So the sheikh that had a white, whether convert or not, frankly, attending their halaqah, their circle of learning, they bragged about it endlessly, and they were just so, it's as if it's a stamp of their brilliance. But not the same when it came to an African American Muslim or a Middle Eastern Muslim or an Indo-Pak Muslim. And when I think of this, having grown up in in Egypt and spent many years also in other countries, there's definitely a legacy from the colonial age that has not gone away. I mean, they're really, and growing up in Egypt, they're really cool, using contemporary phrasing. They're really cool individual will be the individual who has an American friend or a white friend. That would be the person who would be considered, say everyone want to be their friend and everyone want to associate with them. And it, of course, not in sheikh circles, but in the public school circles. My God, I mean, if it happened to be one of the kids had a girlfriend that is white, I mean, they would be treated like a god. And it would be very, it was just a very different. There was definitely a sense of automatic internalization of a sense of inferiority vis-a-vis anyone that comes from England or France or they are automatically seen as smarter, as more knowledgeable. But it's like all forms of prejudice. It's not consistent because that's a definition of prejudice. It's an inherent characteristic of prejudice. At the same time, they are considered ignorant for not being Muslim, and so one doesn't jive with the other. So that we often hear people say, "Well, if they were really smart, they would be Muslim." Well, so why do you, that? I think as you unpack cultures, you have to. A culture is defined by many things, among them a religious identity. So I mean, if you see this particularly in places where a reality of diaspora existed for centuries. So look at the extremely varied articulation of Jewishness in so many Jewish cultures. Religious identity, or religion, or the religious text, is but one of the things that went into defining whether Ashkenazi or Sephardic, and then whether it's an Iraqi, the culture of an Iraqi Jew, an Egyptian Jew, a Yemeni Jew, a Libyan Jew, just remarkably diverse. Leave alone Ethiopian Jew. I mean, remarkably varied. Is there a kernel of commonality in not other than the racial aspect, the religious aspect? Sure. I mean, there is a unifying theme, but culture is not simply another word for religion. And Islamic cultures is exactly that. The Quran or Islam is among the things that enter that influence the shaping of various cultures of various Muslims at various times. Now, and you have to learn to differentiate between this and the process of studying texts, which might be informative as to understanding a particular cultural manifestation or not. So in other words, if you are a scholar of Quran, for instance, you can spend your whole life studying the Quran, and there are many great scholars who do. Now, are they experts on any particular Muslim culture? Might or might not be. Is what they study relevant to any particular Muslim culture? To various degrees, yes, and to various degrees, no. because the Quran is but one of the things that goes into shaping the various articulations of Muslim culture in many areas of the Muslim world, and especially in many historical periods and so on. And the error of the puritanical mind, and what I mean by puritanical is the mind that thinks in absolutes and in superficialities and in black and white or in black letter or in hornbook, is that they want to see, they have no patience for the subtleties of permutations and variations. They want to look at something clean, simple, as clean as a mathematical equation, and they want that to explain everything. And if things cannot be explained by their simple-minded understanding, they'll make things fit. So instead of shaping their own intellect so they can understand the empirical reality, they'll reimagine the empirical reality so it will fit into their simplistic intellects. Now imagine when you take empirical realities and you fit it into your own intellect. Your intellect could be extremely complex, and so you might inject subtleties in the empirical reality that don't exist, but you need to be quite brilliant for that to happen. And that's not the common case and not the most often scenario. Most often, because if you were truly brilliant, your intellect would find itself resistant to taking an empirical reality and fitting it with, and your intellect would expand to adapt to a complex empirical reality. But it's rather the mediocre mind, and as it takes a complex reality and fits it into a well-defined, clean, crisp image, it corrupts it, and it corrupts it grossly, and especially when then it represents itself as the expert, the go-to person, the reference as to that culture. So instead of people experiencing the empirical reality directly, they think, well, we can go to this expert, and this expert can represent to us empirical reality. But if you're going to this expert, and this expert has taken a bunch of empirical realities and just fitted them in this conceptual framework, what you're getting is you're being treated to the mediocrity of the intellect, and that's it. And that's remarkable when you think that sometimes you go and pay $30,000, $40,000 a year to be treated to a mediocre intellect. I mean, that's bad professors. If you didn't get the pun. And that's why I think, since you do pay, or your parents pay, or whoever pays a lot of money for education, it's professors. It is necessary that they but I think as just intelligent citizens of the world, you must always be on the alert. You must always be cautious about simply taking anyone that presents you with a picture that is too clean, too crisp, too simplified, is inherently, in my view at least, suspicious, because that's not how human beings are. I mean, think of yourself. How many times you live with your siblings, you live with your parents, whoever you live with, for many years, and yet you have the gall and maybe the right to say, well, you don't really know me, you don't understand me. What is your assumption here? Is that as a human being, you're so complex and so layered and so multifaceted that it is not possible for a person to fully comprehend that complexity in all its layered fashion. But why do we then, why is it so easy for us, in the same way that we easily assume ourselves to defy simplification? Can we close the door? To defy simplification, why is it so easy for us that we simplify the other? And that has to do with human psychology and your intellectual temperament. What is the source one of the biggest source of most interpersonal conflicts, personal conflicts with others, is that whatever complexity you grant yourself, you refuse to grant to the other. So, that's how people, other words translate, you're insensitive. All of us are guilty of that. We are insensitive because we are sensitive to who we are in our multidimensional fashion, but we find it such a challenge to extend the same to other human beings. But personal insensitivity is a personal matter. I mean, because you could be cute enough for someone to love you anyway, or they still remember you when you were a bubbly baby, so they love you anyway. Whatever it is, whatever the reasons that people love others. But as an intellectual, it's a disaster. That is not a personal matter anyway. And that is what I have a serious problem with, and I guess that's why I don't, I was accused of being a miserable professor as undergraduates. Well, actually, I was just accused of being too difficult, meaning very intolerant of intellectual
Stupidity.
yeah. But as my graduate students will tell you, I also apply to graduate students, but even more so because you're going to be paying $40,000 to listen to them very soon. They need to, they better be worth your money. And it's my job to make sure that they're worth your money, right? Who else is going to make sure that this money? So I really do. I find, this is the best way of learning, the good old-fashioned way. Forget the net. I detest the net. Forget Google, forget websites. You don't learn unless you go venture on a journey. The old-fashioned way they used to say that no one is truly knowledgeable unless they travel in search of knowledge. You now, of course, instead of horses and camels and so on, you get on cars, but the personal face-to-face interaction. And in that journey, I hope that you will be suspicious of any simplified picture presented to you, whether you categorize it as pro-Islamic or anti-Islamic. Life is just too complex. You are too complex. I am too complex. Human beings are complex beings by their nature. And as a believer, I cannot believe that human beings are as complex as they are, and God is, and their maker. Now, speaking as a believer, that their God is somehow simplistic. I mean, it just seems to follow